Hello Copic fans, it is Michelle Houghton here, Copic in the Craft Room. I am coloring up this really adorable stamp from Honeybee Stamps today. I've got it in my Copic sketchbook. I have double checked to make sure I've got my blotter in between so I don't get ink bleeding through. And this is the stamp set. It's actually it's turned around backwards so you can see it a little bit better. These are the Acorn Sisters, and you've probably seen these guys online. I'm always a little bit behind, and I apologize for that about the newest releases, but these came out from Honeybee about a month or so ago, and they really are adorable. There's wonderful little messages in here too, but these three little girls are just sweeter than sweet. So this is probably my last kind of fall stamp or probably video that I'll do for this year. And then obviously we've got some holiday and snow coming up. I know it's getting cold in our area, so I'll be kind of focusing on those. I have stamped this with Memento ink, which I normally do, but this time I have stamped it in a sepia or a brown tone. So what I decided is I'm going to do only earth tones. Now I'm not trying to do like a no line image. Sometimes when I do the sepia, I'm attempting no line, and I'm not really going for that, but because I'm going to use only earth tones, you'll see a little bit of that happen anyway. So what I'm doing is I have basically my entire bag of earth tones here, and I'm going to use those and only those. I'm not going to pull anything else out of my bag this time. Now I've done a couple videos like this before because there's been questions in the past about the earth tone numbering system. So I will try to remember to put a link to the one that I talk about, that numbering system, so you guys can see that in the notes underneath the video. So if you're curious about that, you sure can go back and check that out. But that is what I'm doing today. I'm going to zoom in and get coloring. All right, so we've got lots of colors. So we're going to start with an E11 to base this first girl's skin. I'm doing 3 different skin tones. E13 is going to be adding the shadows. So pretty simple shading on this one. I'm not doing anything fancy. E11 is going to blend those back together. And then when I'm ready, E04 is going to add some color on her cheeks. A little bit of rosy cheek going on. And then I'm going to move on to my second Acorn Sister, and I'm using E50 as the base color on her skin, so a little bit lighter. E51 is going to be a little bit of shading, and E53 as well. So I need to get that a little bit darker on hers, and then a very subtle blush with an E93 on her little cheeks, going back in and blending with that E50. Softening those edges. And I'm moving on to the third Acorn Sister, and this one I'm basing in an E33. The skin tone's going to get a little darker here, purposefully so. And then E35 is going to be adding those shadows and shading. I'm trying to focus that light source over to that right side if you haven't noticed yet. E04 is on her cheeks again, and then blending back with E33. So the darker side of their faces is over to the left because that light source is over to the right. Now I'm going to do a bunch of sections with a base of an E81. The 8 series tends to have kind of a mossy green look. So I'm doing several pieces with this E81 to base. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some shading with an E84. Again, keeping it very simple and trying to keep that light source consistent. So shadows are coming in from that left side. E87 is adding those deeper shadows. Then I'm also going to come over and get this little leaf. E84, E87. Working from the center vein outward. This is a real simple graphic leaf, so not a whole lot of realism, but the basics. E84 to start blending those colors. And then E81 is going to soften all the way back. I tend to be a person that I don't necessarily want to blend everything completely smooth. I do like a nice even transition, but I don't need it to I can still see some of my brush strokes, and that's purposefully so. It's an artistic choice of mine. The E81 is going to continue and do a couple more little areas. E84, the scarf and pants on my middle sister here, and then the legs of the pants. Notice on the scarf I did some dotting to add texture. E87, and then smoothing back with E84 on the pants, and E81 on the pants as well. I'm going to do a few more dots on the scarf. That's added kind of a knobby texture or a knit texture to it, so it looks a little more like a handmade scarf maybe. E70 is going to be the third little girl's dress and shoes. And I'm going to do the leaves on the far Acorn Sisters head and also her boots with that E70. The E70 tends to have a mauve or kind of a purplish gray undertone. E71 is coming in for the shading on those areas. To start, the E7s have a really nice range to them. E74 is next, getting even darker. Leaving a little bit of that center vein light on the hat. And then E77 is going to come into a few areas. On the boots it's getting darker, more of an extreme shadow on those, and just a darker colored boot. E71, so I'm jumping back for the blending. These colors blend so easily together that it's easy to push those around. I used a little tiny bit of colorless blender on the boots to brighten up that light area. I still wanted them to have that high contrast. Doing the same thing on the leaves on her little hat, adding a little bit of that colorless blender to get some brighter shading. E40 and E41 on those little wings. And then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more with some E4s. I'm going to jump up to E42 for the middle gal's little kind of smock or shirt and her shoes and the scarf on the first one. E43 for shading. And then dots again on the scarf and shoes. Adding E44 for some darker shadows, getting that shirt and the shoes darker. Blending back with E43. And starting E43 on the true acorn cap at the far end. E42 to do more blending. That finishes up the shirt and shoes. And then I'm going back with E44. And what I'm doing is I'm just creating like a little U under each of those lines. I want to really darken up a little bit of this. This is E47. It gets even darker just to really pop those little pieces of that acorn cap out. And then E42, I'm going back in and lightening up those top pieces. E44, just going back and forth a little bit, getting those colors shaded in. I've still got all their hair, so I'm going to start tackling that. So I'm going to come all the way down to one end, all the way to my right, I think, to start. And I've got a real long 4 marker combo. E51 was first. This next one is E97. It has some really pretty red undertones to it. E99 is next. And I'm kind of flicking into those strands. You can kind of see I'm keeping it darker next to her neck. Coming in E07. E99. Cleaning up a few little areas with my colorless blender. E43 on the next little head of hair down here. E44. This is going to get darker as well. She's obviously got a darker skin tone, so I needed to pick some darker colors for her hair. E47, again, darker next to her neck and kind of the area falling behind her shoulders and up near her face. E49, that hair is falling behind her, so think about kind of where it's at, and it makes sense why that area would be that much darker. E44 just to soften some of those areas. And then I've got one more set of hair. E04, and I realized I missed a piece of scarf, so I snuck that E84 back in to get that scarf finished up. E07 back on the hair. We're going for kind of a darker red hair on this one, and E09, which for redheads is one of my favorite colors to finish with. Softening up just a little bit with E04. Still see that texture, but just softens those edges a little bit. I still have the little cap in the center, so I'm starting with E30 on that one. E33 is next. And this whole time I've tried to be real consistent about where I think my light source is coming from. I made one mistake on this little cap, kind of right center top, but it's working, and I'm softening up those highlights and kind of refocusing that. And it still all looks like that light is coming in from that right hand side all the way to an E37 for a little bit deeper shadow. And then I come back in, I'm just adding a little bit of E77 to add some dimension into the layers of that first cap. I've got this all finished up. Eventually I might come back and add a background to these lovely ladies, but I think I'm going to stop there because I know my video has gotten fairly long as I've kind of putzed my way through coloring these three girls. Thoroughly enjoyed, and beautiful stamp set from Honeybee. Really fun just to color. And again, it's amazing to me always, each time I sit down and do this, to see the range of the earth tones, about how much you can really get out of that one set of Copic markers. So thank you as always for joining me this week. If you have not had a chance to do so, make sure to like the channel so you get a fresh new video in your inbox every week. And look back through our library, check out some of the old ones. I know there's quite a few years worth of videos from both Coley and Sean to start, and then now for me as well. Our Facebook page is still, my Facebook page is still up and going, so check me out over at Copic in the Craft Room on Facebook, as well as my blog, scrapweaver.com, for all the new Copic doings and comings and goings. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Have a happy, colorful week.